Welcome to our weekly immigration podcast. In case you're new, we do a weekly podcast that focuses on U.S. immigration developments that happen over the last week or two. U.S. immigration usually means we cover politics, we cover programs, we cover any news that relates to visas or green card programs. If you got friends or family, people who need to know about immigration, send us to our channel. We're full of videos and information that really hit this topic right in the middle where people need to know. All right, check us out. This week we're going to talk about a couple big stories. We're going to talk about the Senate parliamentarian rejecting another immigration plan. We're going to also hit the H-2B immigration cap. We've got new visa numbers for that. We're also going to talk about some travel restrictions. They become a little bit complicated to figuring out how to get on a plane. We've got a great graphic for you guys that's really going to be helpful. If you want to skip to that below, we'll have the links down below. We can skip ahead. It's going to walk you through how to get to get on an airplane. We've also got a news story about, they phrase it as modern-day slave trade. So some negative news about what's happening in the United States. And we're going to finish up with a couple of tweets that talk about some of the major issues and what we see is happening in terms of delays and what's going on in American immigration. All right? Check out our podcast. The first story we have today is about the Senate parliamentarian. So in case you've been following, the Biden administration has an immigration plan that they really came out the door with in January. They had it. They were ready. And what they've done is get that plan passed through part of the House, and they consistently, at least 2 times, perhaps 3 times, have tried to add these sections to other bills. When you add immigration sections to specific bills, it has to meet the requirement of what that bill is about, and that's where the Senate parliamentarian comes in, specifically talking about whether the new provisions will be something that can be tied to the budget. And that's essentially what's been happening with immigration. The laws have not been passed, new laws have not been passed, even though they've been passable, meaning the votes have existed to pass those laws, because the Senate parliamentarian says you can't put those laws into this bill. And guess what? It happened again. So the Senate parliamentarian is the one who sort of restricts what goes into each new law by saying it has to be connected. And they're basically said that we're not going to allow it going to be passed. The Senate parliamentarian is actually an individual named Elizabeth McDonough. And she said that it cannot be included, immigration reform cannot be included in a budget measure because it is not directly tied to the budget. Okay? Now, I know this might sound bizarre. If you look into Twitter, if you do the kind of following it the way we do, there's been a lot of discussion in immigration advocates about what the Democrats should have done. And 2 things stand out that I think are really important. Number one, USCIS collects a lot of fees. Any kind of reform, even a DACA reform, is going to have 800,000 new applicants going through a 2 or 3 step process where they'll be paying a lot of fees to the United States government. That's the first thing. And the second thing is that the Democrats didn't show an economic impact by adding 800,000 new full-time tax-paying employees to the whole future of the United States. There's extrapolations that economic sort of models can put together and show how these things have been done. Now, I say that because we use economic modeling in immigration all the time when we try to show future employment. So saying that, I feel like the Democrats have not put together a good fight. And I'm really disappointed with the way they've approached this. And it shows what I think is a continued lack of emphasis on really trying to get an immigration bill passed. I mean, it really has to be done. From Obama's day till now, it's almost the same administration. And they should have learned these lessons back during Obama's 8 years. And here we are in the first year where we have all the power to do these things, and the Democrats have really just stepped in it again. And I'm really chalking this second failure to include immigration reform to the Democrats. I just find it a little bit unacceptable. Now, clearly, the good news is that Biden administration has said through their spokespeople that they're pushing it again next year. So we'll be looking at it again in early 2022, what they're doing to make this immigration law pass, and what programs we think have the best chance of succeeding. We'll give that to you in the future. All right? So don't give up hope on that front. All right. Moving on, we've got the DHS has announced again that they'll be supplementing the H-2B visa program. The H-2B visa is for skilled workers coming to the United States to work for a limited time. There's a lottery twice a year for these programs, and these workers work across the board from oil rigs to all sorts of industries that need seasonal, temporary, or peak load work. Last year, or just this year I should say, Congress allotted another 20,000 H-2B visas specifically for Central Americans, and they allowed those to be used as extensions for individuals who are already here. And they've done that again. They're adding another 20,000 H-2B temporary non-agricultural worker visas for 2022, and they'll be set aside for workers to apply prior to March 31, 2022. It's going to be the first half of the year. The H-2B is divided into two seasons, the beginning half and the second half. And there'll be 13,500 visas available for returning workers. Now, we see this happen, again, we saw it happen this year, where the individuals who are here on the 9 or 10-month visa were able to just extend for another 9 or 10 months. If you're on an H-2B or you're looking at this program, this is very, very good news because it does show that U.S. immigration is presenting opportunities for employers to keep their seasoned, trained workers on hand and on staff. All right? Moving on, we've got travel restrictions and an update. All right, we're going to put a graphic up here to help you with the travel restrictions. So take a look at what we got here. And essentially, this is published by the CDC talking us through, or walking us through, I should say, I'll talk you through it, how to get on an airplane. And if you look here, it's very simple. U.S. citizens can get on an airplane coming back to the United States with a negative COVID test that must be within 1 day of getting on the airplane. That is it, okay? So residents and U.S. citizens must have a negative COVID test and they can get on an airplane, okay? Anybody else, when we look at any other immigrant coming to the United States, which means non-citizens or visa holders, you're going to have a little bit more of a complicated process, okay? And the first thing is going to be, have you been to one of the banned countries? Now, that list was just expanded to cover some countries in the southern part of the African continent because Omicron was found in South Africa, so there's a bunch of countries there. We went over that in one of the videos. If you've been to those countries, within the last 14 days, you cannot fly. So it's really the first benchmark. Where have you been in the last 2 weeks, okay? And if you've been to a banned country, you're going to have to quarantine somewhere. That is a very, very big deal because that 14 days rolling clearly, it starts with the day you try to get on an airplane. After that, if you have been fully vaccinated, you can, that's going to be a very, very big deal. If you've been fully vaccinated and can show proof of vaccination or a test, you're going to need to show those within 1 day of getting on the airplane, okay? Now you can see here on the walkthrough, we're on the last column going down, non-immigrant visas. Have you been to any countries is the first step? No. Great. Fully vaccinated? Yes. You're going to need proof of your vaccination and a negative viral test. Okay, now these are the magic words here, okay? Because they're saying viral test, and you all know there's different kinds of tests, the PCR, the antigen. Some countries it's very easy for them. Other countries, it's very difficult. You're going to have to get this stuff ready, and you're going to have to be able to walk this through for you to come back to the United States. You need proof of vaccination, a negative test no more than 1 day before boarding a flight, and you got to sign the attestation. So aside from that, they have an exception which can help you through. Now keep in mind that November 8th, the borders opened up, and that meant that non-essential travelers could come to the United States. Here we have very specifically how to enter the United States on a flight. The borders, for example, the Mexican border and the Canadian border are just a little bit different, but what you really need to know is if you're vaccinated, that is the number one step. Obviously, the country lists 14 days. And finally, you should have the PCR test. We have had clients come and go, Mexico and Canada, and it has been hit or miss how that works. If they're residents or citizens, it's very easy, but if you're visiting on a tourist visa, I would suggest getting that test along with your proof of vaccination, and that's going to be you come back in. We'll have a link for you to find this graphic if you need, just in case you're thinking of traveling again and you need some help. You can check this list out. All right. Moving on, we have a news story coming out of Georgia, and they phrase the story pretty they used words that I think I'm very careful with, but they called it modern-day slave trade for immigrants found in Georgia. And when you take a look at this article, we're going to have the link up for you here, you can see that literally there were workers smuggled in and told to work, and oftentimes at the point of a gun, and to work in the fields for 20 cents an hour. Now, this is pretty crazy, and it's actually good news that these kind of activities have been exposed, because I know right now in America there's a demand for labor in every aspect in every community. But the problem I think we're seeing here is we see illegal behaviors like this. We're seeing individuals literally go through a process where they're lying, cheating, and putting people through forced, it's slavery, right? So it was found, the U.S. Attorney acted on it, and they've charged those involved criminally, and we're going to see this case going into court. I guess the point I want to put out there is that, we still are the United States of America. We still do have obligations to be morally right and do the right thing. And I'm really happy that the government's moving forward and prosecuting these cases, and I think we need to, kind of be on the lookout for some of this happening again. All right, we got a tweet here for you, moving on, and, we're really, really focusing on the delays that we've seen here. Now, this tweet here from James Hollis is a guy I follow on Twitter. It's great. Take a look and put it up right here. Someone needs to go help USCIS Texas Service Center dig out the adjustment of status applications from prior to 2021. Processing times on those cases are beyond the pale. The case inquiry date says April 2020, 20 months ago for cases with current priority dates that take an hour to adjudicate. This really goes back to a story we put out a little while ago, which there was an investigation into what's happening with USCIS. Why is it taking so long to get things done? And what it's come down to is what used to be a 4-page application, the adjustment of status, when I started was 4 to 5 pages, 6 pages. It expanded to about 8 pages. They added 151 questions. And since that time, it's expanded even more. And when you expand the amount of data you're collecting and you have the same number of cases coming in, but you don't hire new staff, it's taking longer to do each case. Immigration is working in this sort of backwards world where we want more, and they continue to expand the amount of data they collect in each case, but they haven't hired more staff. The fact that a case where they're able to get a green card now is waiting 20 months to get the green card is trying. It takes a toll on the individuals involved. Oftentimes they're left without work or the ability to prove they're here legally. They're in this position of saying, I'm pending. I got clients who get let go. It happens all the time. People lose their jobs. And let's be honest, losing your job is very hard for your family. How do you make ends meet? How do you move forward? Okay? So this tweet is really a great reminder that it might take 1 hour to do this case, but immigration has us backlogged for 20 months. Nuts. It's totally insane. A Biden administration needs to make some changes. They're here for a reason, to make these changes and to make things right. And, I know the groups that I belong to are doing all we can to promote change, and we're going to wait for next year to see what happens. This is our last podcast for the year. We'll be coming back to you in January with more news, more information. We hope you really have a great year, end of year. And want to wish you guys, happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and a Happy New Year. Check back with us again. We're going to have more videos, more content in the new year, telling you all about what's happening in immigration and getting you guys ready and informed so you're ready for your immigration case. Stay safe. Take care.